Minister Aviation. Finally, we invite the chairman to the podium.
Well, I think all the questions have been taken, but what measures are being put in place to deal with enforcement? AIT. Yes. Well, the task force as a body, I think we've done everything humanly possible to engage with those that have responsibilities. You had the DG, Nigeria Center for Disease Control, saying that they just came out of a meeting of the National Council on Health. This evening at 8 o'clock, I will be engaging with the subcommittee of the National Economic Council, where there are about 6 or 7 governors representing the council, directly dealing with issues of COVID-19. That committee is chaired by Governor Patrick Akowa of Delta State. All the matters that are being discussed on those different platforms has to deal with how do we sustain the national response, particularly conscious of the fact that we are now at the community stage of transmission and with no cure or vaccine in sight. The only weapons we've got in our hands are the non-pharmaceutical measures that have been put in place. That's the only thing we've got in our hands. That's the only thing that can protect you from either getting infected or not. And the ownership of the process of that must be cascaded to the different levels, the local government, the communities, and the states. And that's why we keep emphasizing to the subnationals that they have an additional responsibility, because the federal government, as represented by the task force, does not have direct dealings with the people that are supposed to be asked to comply. We generally set guidelines and protocols. But when it comes to enforcement, I've stated this over and over. It is the responsibilities of the subnationals, because they equally sign the quarantine laws or regulations in their various states. And embedded in those quarantine regulations are the issues of penalties and enforcement. And that's why, like for FCT, they sit at the Eagle Square, the mobile court, and they pass and fine and judge people and give different penalties. The aspect of compliance, like the national coordinator rightly stated too, calls for a paradigm shift, behavioral change, which we need in this country as we continue to navigate these uncharted waters of trying to find a way to get out of where we are now. And like the Honorable Minister for Aviation rightly observed, we feel the pains of Nigerians. We know the frustrations that come with it. We know exactly what is happening. The negative economic impact of COVID-19. The story cannot be told now. Down the line, years from today, those adverse effects will continue to show on our earning capacities, on our abilities to live good and well-being lives, because it has impacted every aspect of our lives. It has impacted how we access medical care. There are people that have comorbidities, some health challenges. You can't even access that now because of the total disruption of our healthcare system. Even access to issues of governance, access to legitimate earnings have been disrupted. So many people, if we had a situation of where people file for unemployment like the way it happens in some developed economies, you would have seen people lined up at the offices of labor or unemployment bureaus to file those filing numbers about the fact that they are out of jobs. So the adverse effect of COVID-19 is so obvious and glaring, and the disruption it has caused to our lives would continue for a little while. But I'm confident that the resilient spirit of Nigerians that we have always exhibited will be what will take us through. But how do we get through? We can only get through if we just comply with the basic non-pharmaceutical interventions that have been enumerated. We can't take anything for granted. Over the week, during the week, I saw a clip, and I think I posted it on the platform of the PTF, which says that you take a COVID-19 test on a Monday and you are declared negative. And because you are waiting for a result on a Tuesday, you go to the beach. On a Wednesday, you go for a party. On a Thursday, you go for dinner and do all manners of things. What that is depicting is that the test you have taken must be secured and protected. You can't afford to let lower or kind of put off your guard. Because by the 7th day, when they will come to take another test, you will begin to cough and exhibit symptoms. Because the negative test that you took on a Monday gave you this false sense of protection, and you begin to indulge. And that has been the typical attitude, like I've expressed here. In March, COVID-19 was dreadful. But by the time we got to July, July, I mean, we had started romancing COVID-19 and thinking that, okay, COVID-19 has come to be part of our lives. We will all be infected. Those that will survive, and those that will die, will die. I don't think that's a positive attitude. The attitude is we must try to preserve our loved ones. And the only way we can do that is to get in place the implementation and the enforcement of the non-pharmaceutical measures. Actually, you asked what would happen after September. That's when we get to the end of the prescribed 6 months of the PTF. When we get there, and we'll think about how to cross the bridge. That's the truth. COVID-19 will not end in 6 months. We are all mindful of that. And we will be very responsible enough to put a structure in place that will continue to provide leadership for the people of the country in terms of giving directions, issuing protocols as we move forward. I'm not telling you that the life of the PTF will terminate after 6 months. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the first set of assignment that we were given was in of 6 months. And when we get there, we would submit a comprehensive report to Mr. President. We would evaluate what is happening worldwide. We have not peaked. We don't know when we are going to peak. If we get to the midst of September and things let loose, obviously, you know that nobody can afford to go anywhere. We can't abandon the war at the point that is fierce. We must remain and fight the war with you, because you have also been in the battlefront. So I believe as we go into this new phase with the few modifications that have been made, personal responsibility should be uppermost in our minds. And truly, if you know the rate at which COVID-19 is ravaging, we would continue to take those personal responsibilities and not take anything for granted, honestly. We've allowed the level 12 and above now to start coming to work on a daily basis. My appeal to these officers that will be coming to join those that have been working in the last 3 months is to understand that their coming back to work does not permit them and does not give them the license if where they have been before, they have been living in a very casual manner. They are now coming to congregate in places of work. They must have this in their subconscious, that they have a responsibility to protect themselves first and to protect their colleagues that they are coming to meet. And I believe if we work with that sense of seriousness and resolution of the fact that we are collectively involved in this fight against COVID-19, God will help us as a country and as a people to lower the rate of infection. And eventually, if we get to the peak, bend the curve and begin to see a reduction. As you have seen, from 4 to 10 states plus FCT, exceeding the margin of 1,000. So it means that these numbers will continue to progress. And I've said it often, that we should not take the law in the numbers that have occurred in the last couple of days for granted and play around with it. The fact of the matter is that we are still in the spirit of Salah celebration. So even the workforce are still in that spirit, even the people that are charged with the responsibility. And if you look at the records, as ably always exhibited by the DG, Nigeria Center for Disease Control, our testing numbers have dropped. I'm glad that they had this meeting this afternoon. I'm going to also have one tonight to push with the state governors to ramp up their testing. Now the testing has been brought to their doorsteps. We have 60 laboratories in 31 states and the FCT, and we are working hard to ensure that every state has a well-equipped laboratory for the purposes of testing. So we need to ramp up the testing so that we can dictate, we can find, and we can see what is happening right now in our communities. We cannot claim that we know what is happening in all the communities. And you can see the number of local governments, 536 out of 774 have confirmed. So probably by the time we go another month or two, we would have covered all the local governments with confirmed cases of COVID-19. So it means that there is no state, there is no local government that can claim that there is no COVID-19 ravaging in their communities. And that is why the ownership of the response must be bottom up now, from the rural communities, from the community leaders, from the religious leaders, from the traditional institution. I think they have a responsibility of ostracizing people who walk around without masks in their communities, because it will get to that people should be treated as outcasts if they don't wear masks to protect themselves and protect their people. But that responsibility can only be owned by the communities. Government cannot do everything when it comes to enforcement and causing behavioral change. So I want to thank you very much, and I believe going forward, the world will continue to cooperate and work together. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much, Chairman, Presidential Task Force. We must thank all our partners, particularly members of the press and the various media houses that have been broadcasting live into the homes and offices of Nigerians. We also thank Nigerians who have been watching and listening for guidance on what's next to do regarding COVID-19. But in case you missed part of this national briefing, a quick reminder on a number of issues. In the words of the chairman, we feel your pains, we share your concerns. Please know that all policies and measures are aimed at containing the spread of the virus and balancing between life and livelihood. Two is that government and citizens are partners. Please do not expect enforcement before you change your behavior. Behavioral change is required. It is to save your own life. Three, the current phase has suffered from non-compliance, disbelief, negativity, and skepticism. As a community, let us own this process. Let us own the fight against COVID-19 because it is still virulent, it is dangerous, and it is ravaging. To government officials, government meetings, and all other meetings, as it may apply, board meetings, etc., should please be held virtual so that you maintain all the distancing, you do not crowd yourself into rooms. For labor, GL12 and above are now to resume full working hours. It used to be GL14 and above. It has been lowered to grade level 12. But as the chairman has advised, you cannot afford to be casual in your behavior. When you resume, protect yourself, respect your colleagues at work. Exit classes are to resume ahead of the major exams. No mask, no service. Please stop stigmatization. Always wear your mask. It is in our own interest to take responsibility. Finally, ownership of the process must cascade to all levels. Bear it in mind, family, community, local government, society, state government, and what have you. I thank you very much. This is just a quick reminder. God bless Nigeria. We hope to see you on Monday. Thank you.
She cries. She cries in anguish and in pain. She bears the scourge of her grief. She toils in vain for justice and succumbs to silence. He gloats over his malady. Like a beast, he pounces with no remorse. Her cry means nothing. Her pain feeds her shame.